you mentioned anytime you're fractionalizing an NFT, like it's basically 100% a security. Can we just stop right there and go over like what is a security and why does that matter so much? Because I keep seeing this pop up and I'm trying to wrap my head around like, why does it matter that it's a security so much for me as an investor or collector?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So back up to when the SEC created something referred to as the Securities Act of 1933. Let's go way back in time. And essentially what that says is that if you want to sell a security, then you need to register that security or you need to rely on an exemption. So the question is, what is a security? And the security is a laundry list of terms. It includes stocks, it includes bonds, it includes evidence of indebtedness, and then it has this term that is an investment contract. And this is what you hear about most in the space. So the question is, what is an investment contract? And the answer is that an investment contract is going to exist anytime that there is a transaction, contract, or scheme involving an investment of money in what is referred to as a common enterprise, where there's an expectation of profit based on the efforts of others. If those four things exist, investment of money, common enterprise, expectation of profit, efforts of others, then you are going to have an investment contract and you're going to have a security. And therefore, you need to register that security or rely on an exemption. The problem is that registering the security is extremely expensive. It's basically an IPO. That's what it is. It's when a company goes public. And there are companies that, there are assets that have been sold through IPOs, not just equity interests in securities. The problem, again, is that this is super time consuming and super expensive. So what people do is they try to rely on these exemptions. And the SEC has stated certain times where you can sell securities without registering them. A lot of times this actually involves selling them to accredited investors. These are individuals that have a high net worth or a high enough salary to be allowed to purchase this. There are other times where you have like a hybrid. It's like still considered an exemption, but it's like a little bit of a registration and a little bit of an exemption referred to as Reg A+. And this is where you've actually seen the biggest growth in like assets actually being sold. So there's a company called Rally Road. They basically sell, I think it's cars through groups of cars, I think individuals sometimes together, through this Reg A+ process. And that allows them to sell it to the public. Point is that the second you are a security and you sell it in that way, now you have a very limited ability to resell it. Because the only way that you can resell these things on any kind of an exchange is if this exchange is registered, like the NASDAQ or NYSE. Those are where you need to sell these types of assets. Problem with that is not where we want to be selling assets. Coinbase is not registered. FTX is not registered. And so that's really the issue.
OpenSea looks rare, like any of these decentralized applications. With crypto, there can be a new decentralized marketplace popping up every week, and there's probably very little expectation that all those are going to get registered following these guidelines, especially because some of them might be created by people outside of even the US.
Yeah. Well, and you see like the difference, right, in just the speed of these popping up, right? Whether you're talking about like OpenSea or Magic Eden, right? You're basically going to see a NFT collection get listed there in essentially like seconds or minutes, relative to Coinbase, which will take longer, relative to the New York Stock Exchange, which will take a year. And so the speed at which you can move when you're not dealing with a security is much quicker than when you are dealing with a security.
Yeah. So would you say that the biggest barrier to being compliant is simply registering and the cost and the legal process associated with that, or is it something else?
I mean, that should be the biggest barrier, but it's not. As in, it is a huge barrier and it does exist. But the biggest barrier, honestly, is the SEC, which I say that because even if you go ahead and register, which right now, if you're dealing with any kind of crypto or NFT, the SEC is going to take like years to allow you to register this. And so if you are able to, though, then the problem is, where are you going to trade it? Why? Because the SEC has refused to actually allow any registration for the trading of crypto. So you've got companies that have bought other companies. Coinbase has bought a broker-dealer for the purpose of being able to trade crypto that is considered securities. And the SEC will not allow them to do it. So the biggest blocker effectively is the SEC just not allowing crypto to be traded on the secondary market if it's a security.
You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in Web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the metaverse.